The Scales of Neighborly Grace. The sun rose gently over the quiet rows of the mobile home community, casting long and peaceful shadows across the neatly kept lawns. In this corner of the world, everyone knew their neighbor, or at least they thought they did. Robin Shepler had called this place home for 2 years, finding comfort in predictable rhythms of the park. Across the street lived Garrett Tappendorf, a man known for his skills as a handyman, but also for a temperament that occasionally vibrated as loudly as his music. The relationship between the two had started with the simple courtesies of people sharing a zip code. There was a time, a singular evening that stood out in their shared history, when they had gone out for a Friday night fish dinner. It was a pleasant enough affair, filled with the clinking of cutlery and the light chatter of people getting to know one another. But as the months turned into years, that one social outing remained the only instance of their friendship outside the boundaries of their property lines. The tension began with the music. Garrett had a habit of turning his volume up until the walls of the neighboring homes seemed to pulse with the rhythm. For Robin, who often worked from her home, the noise became an invisible wall that blocked her productivity and peace of mind. One afternoon, when the sound became too much to bear, she reached out to the local authorities to intervene. It was a decision that would ripple through their future interactions, turning neighborly cooperation into a legal dispute. At the heart of their conflict was a piece of machinery with its own history. It was a Golden Companion 2 mobility scooter, a 3-wheeled vehicle that had once belonged to Robin's father. Her father had purchased it from a contact at the Veterans Affairs Center back in the year 2015. He had bought both a scooter and a wheelchair, though he never had the chance to use them before he moved into a nursing home. In the year 2018, the scooter passed into Robin's possession. It was a sturdy machine, though by the time the year 2021 arrived, it had been sitting idle for 3 years and required 2 new batteries to return to its former glory. In May of the year 2021, a verbal agreement was formed between the neighbors. Garrett, being a man who worked well with his hands, expressed an interest in the scooter. Robin saw an opportunity for a mutually beneficial arrangement. She had been wanting to install a dishwasher and a water softener in her home. She proposed a trade where Garrett would perform the labor of the installation in exchange for a discounted price on the scooter. Robin had imagined the value of the unused scooter to be high, perhaps as much as $1,500. However, the market for such items was different than she expected. A brand new model of the same brand cost less than $3,000, and the machine in question was already 8 years old. Despite the lack of a formal written contract with clear and specific terms, Garrett took possession of the scooter. Months passed, and the labor was performed. Garrett spent hours cutting into cabinets, preparing the plumbing, and running electrical lines to power the new dishwasher. He even installed an additional electrical outlet for Robin's microwave. From his perspective, his sweat and skill were the currency that paid for the 3-wheeled scooter. From Robin's perspective, the work was not quite up to professional standards, and she eventually felt the need to replace the used dishwasher he had installed with a brand new one. The dispute eventually found its way into the courtroom of Judge Judy Justice. The air in the room was thick with the gravity of the law as the officer called the court to order. Case number 3053, Shepler v. Tappendorf, was called. The judge, a woman of sharp intellect and decades of experience, looked over the facts with a discerning eye. Robin stood before the bench, claiming that she was owed more money for the mobility scooter and seeking damages for what she described as harassment. She spoke of the night when Garrett had placed powerful spotlights in his flower bed, aimed directly at her home, illuminating the entire street. She spoke of the police arriving and the lights going out within 3 minutes. She spoke of her fear and her feeling that the $500 Garrett had eventually paid her was not enough for a machine she believed was worth $1,000. Garrett defended his position, noting that he had provided labor and a cash payment that exceeded the current market value of an 8-year-old scooter that had not been running for years. The court's clerk, after researching the value of such a machine on various marketplaces, confirmed that a used model from that era typically sold for between $225 and $750. Judge Judy, listening to the testimony, saw the situation for what it truly was. She noted that Robin had been compensated more than handsomely. Between the $500 in cash and the hours of labor Garrett had spent on the cabinetry and electrical work, The debt for the scooter was more than satisfied. The judge pointed out that if one wants a professional installation, one should hire a professional, rather than making a trade with a neighbor and complaining about the quality later. The judge also addressed a counterclaim from Garrett, who alleged that Robin's constant calls to the police had led to his eviction from the mobile home park. However, he had no physical proof, no documents, and no testimony from the landlord to support his claim that Robin was the sole cause of his relocation. Without evidence, his claim for $1,800 in moving expenses and damages could not stand. In the end, the judge dismissed both cases. She encouraged the parties to move on with their lives. Garrett had already left the park, seeking a more peaceful place to live, and Robin remained, hoping for a return to the quiet life she had once enjoyed. It was a lesson in the importance of clear communication and the reality that sometimes the best neighborly policy is simply to pay for services rendered and keep the peace. As the first case concluded, a second matter was brought before the court. Case number 3043 involved Vincent Huntsman and Jesse Valdez. This was a story not of neighbors, but of an employer who would try to help an employee find his footing in the world. Vincent Huntsman owned a business and believed in seeing people succeed. When Jesse Valdez needed a place to live for his girlfriend and their 2 children, Vincent stepped in. In September of the year 2022, Vincent advanced $2,800 to cover the security deposit for an apartment in Midvale, Utah. It was an act of generosity intended to ensure that Jesse would be a stable and focused worker for his insulation business. However, the human heart and human circumstances are often complicated. Only 1 month after receiving the funds and moving into the apartment, Jesse decided to become a stay-at-home father. He argued that he had no other option, but the law and the judge had a different view of responsibility. A debt is a debt, regardless of the changing nature of one's career or family life. Jesse attempted to argue that the money was a gift, a sign of appreciation for his potential as a worker. But the judge was quick to point out the inconsistency of that logic. One does not receive a gift of nearly $3,000 to be a good worker and then stop working for the person who gave the money almost immediately. The court found that the $2,800 was a loan that remained unpaid. The judge looked at Jesse and spoke of the realities of adulthood. She reminded him that when people need money, they often work multiple jobs or find childcare solutions. Rely on the kindness of a stranger and then failing to honor the agreement was not a path to success. The court ruled in favor of the plaintiff, Vincent Huntsman, ensuring that the money he had worked hard to earn would be returned to him. As the court adjourned, the participants walked away with a clearer understanding of justice. It was not just about the money or the machines or the apartments. It was about the promises we make to one another and the integrity we carry in our daily lives. The mobile home park returned to its quiet state, and the business owner went back to his work. Both reminded that while kindness is a virtue, it must be balanced with a firm hand of accountability. The stories of these individuals served as a testament to the fact that in every community, whether in a court of law or on a quiet street, the truth eventually finds its way to the light. The world continued to turn, and in the small interactions between people, the values of honesty and hard work remain the foundation of a healthy society. Robin, Garrett, Vincent, and Jesse each carried a piece of this experience with them, a reminder that the scales of justice are always seeking balance in the grand tapestry of human life.